everybody, welcome to Camel City Chat, and I'm here with my friend. So the honorable, are you honorable as well? I know the mayor carries it. No, I think if you're elected, okay, if you are elected to a position in North Carolina, you carry honorable for the rest of your life.
You know, I'll take it.
The Honorable Kevin Mundy.
I will take it. I can't confirm that, but I'll take it.
Southwest Ward, Ardmore.
Ardmore and much more.
And much more,
yes.
right.
But Ardmore is definitely the biggest neighborhood. I think it's the biggest neighborhood in Winston-Salem. Correct.
Yeah. So he is the Southwest Ward Council member. Now, it's one of those things that people don't understand how we get to there, so we're going to take some time to get you to there, but we also have some history together and some even more history that you're going to see I dug up. I did some research. I'm ready here.
I'm
that
afraid.
One kind of scared you there. I will tell you this. Jerry does not know you're being interviewed by me, so I don't have any of those stories.
Okay.
Okay, good. So there we go. All right, everybody. First question, Kevin. Where are you from? Aiken, South Carolina. And how long have you been in Winston?
Well, you just said Aiken, South Carolina, and that's where my family still is. I've been in Winston-Salem since 1987. I actually was recruited on campus. I was at the University of South Carolina. I got an international MBA, Spanish speaker, and Hanes Brands, which was Sara Lee at the time, needed someone who spoke Spanish to help open some more of their Latin American markets for hosiery.
Correct. And what's interesting is I have several friends that have worked in that industry who you probably are friends with, who would go to Honduras to a plant or different places like that. I mean, that was very integral.
Integral.
Okay, integral. See, he's fancy. Okay. But that was huge to be able to go into those markets and have someone that spoke the language.
Yeah, it was. But now I'm just going to clarify that the folks who went to a plant, that was after we stopped operations in the United States. Right. And they were actually dealing with the manufacturing side or someone who was doing some contract manufacturing. I was dealing with distributors selling directly to the consumer.
Oh, wow, okay.
So mine was more of a marketing liaison and helping them understand the product attributes, how to market it, and provide them with marketing materials and that sort of thing. So I was distributor to consumer, and the other folks were, after '93, after NAFTA, after we started shifting manufacturing offshore, they were actually dealing with manufacturing facilities.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, I'll go back to high school, Hornets, right?
Aiken Hornets. Aiken
so what was William the Refrigerator Perry like since you were 2 years behind him?
No, just 1 year.
Just 1 year?
No, he was 1 year behind me. He was 1 year behind me.
I thought you weren't 60 yet.
We weren't going to discuss age.
Okay, so there you go. So I was giving you 58. How's that? There you go. So, all right, so you got the fridge.
We played football together. When I was in the 6th grade and he was in the 5th grade, we played for East Aiken Hawks.
Right.
And I've got a picture somewhere in my house that
of a man standing next to you.
Yes.
Right.
I can tell you either my number or his number was 59. I can't remember. But I got to find that picture because people don't believe me that I played on the same team as William Perry.
Huge, right?
Yeah. He was even back then. I mean, definitely the biggest person in the picture.
Right.
And he stayed like that. He always spoke at our pep rallies in high school, and he could rouse the people because everybody knew who he was.
Right. And we'll come down to, you had to settle with a school that you went to for college. I mean, kind of an okay school. Sorry about that, son. It wasn't Appalachian,
I think Milton Rhodes would have an issue with that.
We'll talk about that. All right, so what is your favorite place to eat in Winston-Salem?
Ooh.
Now,
that's
you can get out of it however you want to. I'm still going to ask you where's the last place that you guys had dinner.
Okay.
So,
okay. I would say my favorite place is West End Cafe.
I'm going there next week for lunch.
I love West End Cafe. Stacy is one of the owners, and she's been a friend for many, many years, back when she was a bartender at Gatsby's.
Right.
I've never had food there I didn't like.
Right.
So usually for birthday, for special occasion, we'll drop into West End Cafe if we have friends from out of town. So that's one of my favorites. I don't go all the time, but it is one of my favorites.
We're very lucky in Winston. I think we've got some great restaurants. Any place else that pops into the mind?
Any of the family-style restaurants, what we love. Michael loves that kind of home-style cooking. I do too, but you can get a little, off the beaten path and find something different. But we go to all the regulars to Cagney's over here at Cloverdale. We go to Cagney's on Stratford. We go to
Omega.
Carriage House, Omega House.
So I'm going to Carriage House on Monday. A friend of mine goes, well, let's go to Carriage House. I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't been to Carriage House in forever.
Carriage House is great. They have a really good breakfast too.
Yep. We're going to go for lunch. And so in the same week, I'm hitting Carriage House and West End.
And I'll give a little credit to outside the city limits. Clemens Kitchen is really great.
Clemens Kitchen's good, and my wife and I like breakfast time at 8:01. So 8:01 out in Advance is a good breakfast as well too.
Yeah, those folks who own breakfast time have really opened a lot of other venues as well. So some good folks and some good food.
All right, so you mentioned Michael. You guys been married how long now?
Well, we've been together for
long now?
24 years.
Right.
And we were married in 2019, just months before COVID.
Right.
So, this is
And you've made it through COVID.
We made it through COVID. Yes, we're here to tell the story.
I think you even posted it on Facebook of we made it through COVID.
We made it through COVID.
And now, what do you guys like to do?
We're both musicians.
Okay.
He has been a church.
Wait a minute, that I didn't know. So this is.
I think it's on there. He plays the organ.
Okay.
And has been he's diehard Moravian. If you cut him, he bleeds sugar cake.
Okay.
And he used to play organ for various Moravian churches.
Right.
We actually have a church organ in our house, and our house is not that big.
Right.
I play piano and a couple of other instruments. So, we can kind of do some duets. And back during COVID, that's what we would do. We'd work on a duet, we would record it, and then we'd send it to Green Street for them to play during our Facebook and Zoom church services.
So I have a client, and she recently got married, and it's Mary Jack Brennan and her husband.
Yeah,
right?
she was in my choir for a little
Right.
bit.
And so she, her husband, who was retired now from Centenary, he gave me Martha Bassett's phone number, and I got in touch with Martha. And now guess who Mary Jack's given me the phone number for, and I'm going to be reaching out him the next day or two as soon as Stabler gives me his calendar.
Big Ron?
Nope. Gosh, now why'd you do this? No, the used to be the minister there.
Oh, Kelly
Kevin.
Carpenter.
Kelly.
Yeah.
That's it, So
Yeah,
Kelly,
Kelly's a
I've
great
got
guy.
Kelly's cell. I'm gonna be calling him to have him on because he's doing some really cool things right now too.
Kelly's one of the best people I know, honestly.
Green Street.
Kelly married us.
Okay, good. Yeah, Green Street is was just a great, just a whole melting pot of the whole community and that. And he made the statement. I think he said, I'm not marrying anybody until I can marry everyone. And interestingly, as we transition now to more about you, I met his college roommate.
The other Kelly?
The other Kelly, yeah. So the other Kelly and I are friends, and so that's so. But now let's talk about your roommate. So you slummed it and went to Wofford.
I did go to Wofford.
So you're a terrier. Just kidding. A good school, and it turns out that one of my dear friends is friends with your college roommate, Jerry.
Jerry Lanford.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so you're Christine.
So Christine and
yeah,
Colin.
that's right. We
yeah.
made that connection.
Right, yep.
When we went to eat at the West End Cafe.
Right.
Yeah.
So Christine and Cullen, I met in late '90s, and of course since then Cullen's passed. But Christine, we moved up and lived here with us for a while. Got a job, got an apartment, and then she's bought a house, and she's actually working for one of our friends now.
Her house is in the Southwest Ward.
Is it?
Yeah.
That's right. She told me that.
It is
Yeah.
off of Atwood. It's
Right.
not Atwood Acres, but it abuts Atwood Acres.
So do you have Griffith Road?
Yes.
So you got Manson Mead sewage treatment plant in your?
Yes, I
Oh
do.
wow,
Yes,
that's
I do.
nice
Yeah,
there, buddy.
yeah. And I'm somewhere along there. Half of it goes to the South Ward, I believe, but the majority of Griffith Road I have. And
Okay. Wow.
You will soon
So
see
you do come over there.
You will soon see a sidewalk on Griffith Road.
Wow.
It's
Okay.
It's budgeted. It's paid for. Some preliminary work has been
All
done.
the way down?
It's not the entire length.
Okay.
But it's where the majority of the residents.
Okay,
All
all right.
So it'll catch the rest.
Because we're down in front of Manson Meads. So we had the three buildings across from Manson Meads on Armstrong Drive. We just are down to the one now.
Okay.
One of the buildings was actually an old Haynes sock plant.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. So, all right. So let's talk about Kevin now. Sorry about that. We digress. How much we got, Stabler? All right. So.
He's never at a loss for words.
Yeah. No. Yeah. So you and I met. We were trying to figure this out. You worked for. Let's see. You worked for AIDS Services.
AIDS Care Service.
AIDS Care Services, and I think that I met you at one point, like doing pro safe sex type of event and stuff like that. But I don't know if I met you there or not. But I know that I met you then. You were on Real Estate Radio talking about your interim directorship of
Sawtooth
Sawtooth
School,
Center. Right.
Sawtooth School.
Sawtooth School.
We
Phenomenal
changed that
place.
many years ago.
Phenomenal place.
It is. I love Sawtooth. I love my time there.
And you were working on you guys were doing the Christmas thing where everybody brings in something that they've made and sells it at that point?
I think we probably were talking about Deck the Halls.
That's it, yeah.
Deck the Halls. It was our biggest fundraiser. And we had, it was juried, so you had to submit what you did, and then you brought your artwork in, and it was like a huge gallery.
Right.
But we were open to the public for X number of days. We put a lot of marketing behind it, and it really was a big fundraiser. Now, I will tell you, since then, particularly as they went through COVID, they kind of retooled how they were doing things, and like anything that brings in a lot of money, it takes a lot of resources. And when you really tease out the profitability, you discover that big event was not as profitable as Sawtooth needed it to be. So they really scaled it down.
It is interesting when we're doing fundraising for things that if you put the actual man hours or person hours into it, the money spent and stuff, if you just ask everybody for $5, it'd pay for it.
Yeah.
But we also want what's the awareness?
It's the awareness,
return
it
on
builds
that?
visibility, it builds, Now, I will tell you that if you're doing a big event and the majority of your work is physical, hands-on involvement in labor, and you've got a good pool of volunteers, you can make it profitable.
Right.
But most of the work for the Deck the Halls was done by staff. So it didn't work out to be a free labor market as it would be with volunteers.
All right, so I gotta get over here because you got all these different crazy jobs you've done. So let's go back. I really want to do this. So you basically were recruited from USC, and did you serve an internship after the recruitment or before that, or when did you go to Mexico City?
When I was getting my international MBA at the University of South Carolina, that one of the strengths of that program is it requires you to work for 6 months, do a six-month internship in a country that speaks the language you're specializing in. So they have multiple tracks, different languages: French, Spanish, English, German, Japanese, Arabic, and Portuguese. At the time, I think they've expanded even more since then.
How'd you feel down there? Because I have a friend of mine that worked really high up there, and he had a bodyguard, and then he had a driver, and then his wife and kids had bodyguards and stuff. I mean,
It can be dangerous.
Right.
It was not. No, I am telling my age. I was there in 86. So the dangers that some people have experienced were not as extreme.
Right.
But I'd done enough travel that I kind of knew not to appear that I was a business person.
Right. Not a business person. Did you have the Canadian patch on your, because
Something like that.
anywhere you go, you always got to put the Canada patch on.
But people know you're an American. People know you're an American. But I was just dressed in jeans. I didn't,
Right.
So no, I didn't have a bodyguard. As a matter of fact, I took most of the time public transportation, 3 subways, a pecero, which is a little van, and still had to walk another half mile. It took me 45 minutes to get to work.
For Black & Decker.
For Black & Decker.
Right.
Black & Decker.
Black & Decker.
So I didn't feel the danger. I knew what neighborhoods to stay out of.
Right.
I think now is a different story, but
a phenomenal experience.
It was a phenomenal experience. There was I had an American roommate.
Right.
We agreed that if anybody who spoke Spanish was in the house, we would only speak Spanish.
Right.
We had different social circles, different activities, so we really didn't pal around.
Right.
So everybody that I interacted with was a Spanish speaker. So you learn by immersion.
Yeah, week 2, it's over with. You're ready to go, aren't you? Let's take a quick break. Okay. And then when we come back, I want to talk about this because what I want to do is build people up to see not only who you are, but then where your love of Winston comes from, and also what the heck you were thinking that day when you decided, I'm going to do something. We'll be right back with more Camel City Chat. Welcome back to Camel City Chat. I'm John McPherson. I'm here with Council Member Kevin Mundy, the Honorable Kevin Mundy. Is that up for discussion or whatever there? But
I'm not going to say a word.
yeah. So all right. So we do we go then. We're working at Haynes Sara Lee. And how long were you there?
Almost 20 years through, and right before the spinoff,
Right.
when they became a standalone, the project that I was working on was a kind of a full-time cause marketing, national sponsorship. They dropped the sponsorship because it was very closely tied to Walmart. Walmart had dropped
I was
their
gonna say, you and my dad
sponsorship.
have something in common. You both been to Bentonville.
Oh my gosh, I went to Bentonville many
Yeah,
times.
my parent took them magazines, and so we had to go negotiate with them and go there, and you fly
Northwest
in.
Arkansas. Yeah, I
It's
used
an
to
experience,
fly.
isn't it?
Yeah, I used to fly into it's XNA,
Right.
Northwest Arkansas. I used to fly in when it was just like one little building.
Yeah.
And it's a
And,
huge
and
airport
so
now.
I've had a couple clients that have come in and have done that. Actually, our neighbor across the street used to do that. He says, you fly in, you land, you go to this building. They have chairs set up with tables, and you sit down. The person comes up, you give them the spiel and everything. They put you back on the plane and fly you out. and you know that it's just really that's what it was. Of course, now it's world
It's a different
renowned and
world.
everything.
Yeah.
But so you did that. So you worked in marketing 2003. Meredith Berkmeyer Metcalf. Yeah. So Todd is one of my fraternity brothers, and Meredith,
Okay.
we've been friends for years.
Meredith did all of our research for
Yep,
us.
she's retired now.
Good for her. She did a
and
great
I've
job.
got a couple other friends work there. Great company. All right, and then you leave Haynes, and that's when you go to what? AIDS Care Services.
When I left Haynes, that's when I kind of went into business for myself.
Right.
I incorporated, and I wanted to do some, consulting and contract work.
Right.
Haynes was really averse to doing work with contractors at the time, a number of reasons. But if I was incorporated, I could actually be a vendor.
Okay.
So I did a lot of the work that I did when I was at Haynes Brands.
Right.
That was still there, but the person in charge didn't have time to do it.
Right.
So I continued actually working with Walmart on a temporary basis, or a couple of years, as not a contractor but a consultant
Right.
and a vendor to Haynes Brands.
Right, and now they use them. Goodness gracious, they've got vendors that put Hanes product up in the shelves. I mean, they don't. It's nobody does their work anymore. It's a think tank, and then various vendors around that service the needs.
Yeah. Well, it depends on your business model. If you can flex, you can constrict as needed,
Right.
without having to lay people off or hire new people. So if there's a service that you can contract, sometimes it makes sense. And the whole concept of vertical integration, that was the way almost all businesses went for a while, I guess, in the early 90s. Why pay somebody else, make a profit to do the work that we can do internally?
Right.
But there are all sorts of expenses, that you incur when you're an integrated business. So it makes sense to me to farm it out if you can, because you get specialists who know what they're doing, and you have that flexibility to flex and constrict without hurting anyone.
Well, yeah, I mean, you and I grew up spoken wheel, and now just in time is the way to do everything. I mean, it's just, I got friends that work for BE or Burns or Raycom or whatever, and they're in there and they're there to hand a part over, and that's all they do all day is hand parts out, so that they're able, to just in time in the sense of things. Who would have ever thought that would be? You've got an employee from another company in our building. What the heck's going on? And we're so lucky to have these businesses in our community.
We are, and we actually have more businesses, I think, than people realize. For so many years, and this, you asked why I loved Winston-Salem. For one thing,
That's coming, but I can ask it.
I grew up in a small town, Aiken, South Carolina. It's a lovely retirement community. I had a very great childhood and young adult time living there, but it is small. So when I came to Winston-Salem for my interview, I looked at Winston-Salem and said, wow, it's a big city. It's got a skyline, Since then, you learn it really is a medium-sized city.
Well, no, it's a big city with an Aiken feel.
Yeah. I mean, because
it is
people
crazy.
do know each other.
Yes.
If you get involved in one or two things, you start to know everyone who's involved.
Well, that's why I do this. I mean, a lot of my guests I already knew ahead of time, but some are new people that I'd never met. And then, I'm talking to someone today and said, hey, I ran into a buddy of yours. And I'm like, really? He says, yeah, I was talking to Sammy G the other day. Man, he likes you. He says, you guys live on the same street. And I said, he goes, no, I mean, he may be living on, and I'm like, I just met him. He's a great guy. I think he's wonderful, but it's so cool how...
Not a lot of, you can't keep secrets very well
Right,
in
no.
Winston-Salem.
Yeah, but it's it is interesting how small we are, but yet how large we are too.
Yeah. And when I moved here, there were 5 Fortune 500 companies.
Right.
Okay. Major names, even like Krispy Kreme that was
Right.
based here, it wasn't a Fortune 500 company, but it was a nationally known and worldwide loved product. So Winston-Salem just had more amenities. It had more stuff going on. I've always been involved in the arts. I've always loved music. And the first year I moved here, I started singing in the Winston-Salem Symphony Chorale.
Right.
They're symphony chorus now. And that led to me doing some shows at Little Theater. And those are the lifelong friends that I've made, not through work, but through my avocation of music.
Well, and usually we get to this much later in the show, but I mean, you are an advocate for, people, and what I mean, specifically is your work with AIDS, your work with, the arts, your work. I mean, you advocate for all different types of people. I mean, it's interesting with where you are. I'm sure you have some people in your ward or is a ward. Mm-hmm. You have people in your ward that are millionaires, and you have people in your ward that are barely able to,
If they didn't have Section 8, they wouldn't have a roof over
correct.
their head.
Yeah, but you're always trying to find what's best. For instance, putting that sidewalk in there, that allows me to walk closer to a bus stop. That may allow me to walk to get to work, but it also allows me to enjoy walking my dog.
Yeah.
All these different things. And that's one thing that I've known and recognized and loved and cared about you as we've been friends. Is I always know that you're trying to not only look out for those that have, but also those that have not.
And those are the ones who often go without a voice.
Right.
I will salute my colleagues on City Council because so many of them realize the importance of helping people who have traditionally not had that hand up or who have actually had a hand pushing them down.
Correct.
And that includes not only people of color, but people who are LGBTQ. I'm a member of that community. I work very hard to get our non-discrimination ordinance passed. If you're white and you're middle class and you're straight, the world kind of was designed for you. So, not that there aren't people who fall in that category who need a hand up because of job loss or what have you, but traditionally, that's not the group that's needed a hand. So I like to, having been a member of a group that was not somewhat, but largely marginalized for many years. Mm-hmm. I want to help people that don't have that voice and don't have that built-in privilege. Mm-hmm. So, and then the other thing is I do look to the future. And when we look at trends, ask Meredith about trends. You look ahead. You can't look at what's happening in the marketplace right now. You need to look at what the trends are and what the predictions and projections are. And we know that in order to recruit new workers to Winston-Salem, new people, we have to give the Generation Z and millennials what they're looking for, and it's sidewalks. It's being able to walk to their workplace and walk to their grocery store and not have to own a car. That's very important to the generations coming behind us to save the planet and reduce their carbon footprint. And if we as a city don't think in that forward fashion, it'll be too late. And one day we're going to end up. I'm not even going to name the town that I referenced, but you've been through old textile towns that just folded, basically. Mm-hmm. And it's like you're driving through a ghost town. And that's an extreme example, but I don't want Winston-Salem to become irrelevant.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons I look at the infrastructure that we need, and I push very hard to plan for the future. And it's a real challenge because people who are here now, they don't necessarily want that. And how do you balance the wants and needs of current residents versus the need to bring in future residents?
And I'm going to ask you that question, so be prepared to answer as how do we fix that? Because that's usually my last question is you've lived here this long, blah, 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 and so I want to get back to that.
Okay.
I want to talk to you about two things as we get there. One is you did Sawtooth Center, so love of arts, and Sawtooth School. See, I can learn.
Sawtooth School.
Yeah. But then you do a little leadership Winston-Salem. That was kind of a cool thing to do.
It was.
But what the hell were you thinking? I want to talk about that. So I mean, because then we're going to spend most of our time probably talking about what's going on and how it's going. But really, honestly, what the hell were you thinking? I mean, were you at home and you go, hey, Michael, this is what I want to do, or what happened?
I think it's Nancy Young's fault. Now, do you know Nancy?
No, I don't.
Okay, when I was
May, I don't-
when I was at Hanesbrand, Sarah Lee,
Right.
Nancy was the director of corporate affairs and community relations, and I was hired or I was recruited by her department to come and run the Crosby golf tournament.
Okay.
So that was my first real taste of corporate involvement in the nonprofit world, and she called herself a corporate do-gooder.
Okay.
Because really the senior executives, they didn't have time to go to the corporate, or rather to the community luncheons. They were running the business. So our department got involved with the community. So that's what I did for 6 or 8 years. I was in corporate affairs, and I
So
met
then
all
that's
of the
where maybe
nonprofit leaders.
I was a Crosby driver, so maybe we
Oh,
met
were
there
you?
too.
So
Yeah.
you worked for Charlie Quinn. Yeah. And I'm still in touch with Catherine Crosby and her daughter Mary, because we still have the Crosby Scholars.
Right.
So there are a lot of tie-ins, and there's a real legacy left from that tournament. But that's when I started getting involved with the community, with the other foundations. The Crosby ended up giving out roughly $1 million a year.
Right.
We scooped some of that off the top to help pay for the Crosby Scholars.
Right.
But the rest of it was designated by the winners. So in a way, we were foundation because we were givers of money. So I interacted very closely with Kate Reynolds, with Winston-Salem Foundation, with Z Smith Reynolds. And that's how I started learning about the community. And I wanted to be a giver to the community. And when I had a corporate salary, and it was my job to do that, it was very easy. I didn't have to beg for time off to go to this community luncheon. It was part of my job.
Right. Yeah.
So when I moved on to different jobs, I missed that. I really missed it. That's why I went into this business on my own, and I was doing also nonprofit management and interim leadership roles and so forth. So I get to the point that I'm thinking about early retirement because, not having kids, not having to pay for kids to go to college. By the way, are you saving money already for that? Because
I got to pay for that? I thought she was smart enough that she could see it now.
So I'd saved pretty well,
Right.
and I thought I could take early retirement,
Right.
but I wasn't quite ready. So,
Because I know you did it for the pay. We're going to
I
be
did it
right
for the
back
pay.
with more Camel City Chat. He's going to tell us all about this, okay? Welcome back to Camel City Chat, and I'm here with Kevin Mundy, Southwest Ward Council member. We got all this stuff. So I went on, and Stabler, if you'll show this before we come back, we can reference it, but I went on the website, and it has a message about you and your education around here, and the housing and the fire stations and all that stuff. Oh gosh, I just noticed I would have been in your ward in my first house that I lived in Winston-Salem. I just saw
you can
it.
always move back.
Yeah, true. I don't like being. I'll tell you where I am in a minute, but I don't like being where I am because I don't have. Well, I guess I'm answering it now. I don't like having just county representation. So I'm in the county.
Oh, you're in the county. Okay.
Yeah. So I was, ABC for Louisville, and then when I moved, I'm hoping, maybe I can be, but I'm in the county, so there is no county representative to the ABC board. So I've got to talk to Dudley to see how I can get involved. So we were talking about, you making a dumb decision, and it's not a dumb decision, but I kid with you about it. Where were you? What were you doing? And you go, I'm going to run for city council.
I will tell you what really ignited it. When I read that Dan Bessie was going to run for the North Carolina House.
Running against Jeff Singer. Yep.
And in order to do that, because he was also up for re-election
Right.
city council, he had to give up his seat. Dan had been, for many years, one of the people I admired. Through my lens of being a member of the LGBTQ community, he had always been involved in the Pride Parade. He had always, kept, I think, our community front of mind and was helpful. And I just thought that Dan was overall a good guy. And I've learned since then I was right. Dan really is a good guy, and I'm thrilled.
School board.
No, he's going county.
No, that's right. County commissioner.
Yes. So you are fortunate to have him representing you, and I love the fact that he's going to the county. So I knew he was a known entity to me, and he was more what I would consider on the progressive side, and just shared some of the same views that I did. And I was really afraid of who might take that seat. I wanted someone to come in who had shared some of the same philosophies and priorities.
Did you run opposed?
I did run opposed.
Okay.
And
Because I knew 2 or 3 people that were saying, I might run. I might run. Yeah. I'm like, oh, okay.
I'm going to mention that Scott Andre Bowen was my competitor, and we have become very, very good friends.
Right.
We actually met. He called me. He said, let's meet, because I'm not a nasty person. I don't want to have a nasty campaign.
Right.
So we agreed to support each other. Whoever won, we would support the other. He did. As soon as I won that night, he threw his support behind me. So he's a great guy.
Right.
And then
when were you elected?
General election, I ran unopposed.
Okay. So I knew people that had talked about maybe running in the general election against you then, and I'm like, okay, but I'm friends with you. So what? So I hope that you would have luck with it. And so now you basically are. How long have you been in now?
December 7th, I believe, was the day I was sworn in. So I just, last month completed my 2-year mark, which is halfway through. It's a 4-year term.
Okay. All right. So 4 years, and then you're running 2 years. And is that? Are you announcing that here that you'll run in 2 years?
I got to get through this year, No,
Just trying. It's on the table.
It is on the table. I would say I am up for re-election in 2024. So.
And do you like it?
I will tell you that it is a much bigger job than I ever dreamed it would be.
You make like $10,000 a year. I mean, come on now.
Well, okay, let's be honest. We have voted as a council to take that pay up. I knew when I took the job it wasn't for the pay. But I was close enough to retirement. I had saved enough. I didn't have to have
we got
the
a
income.
full-time mayor working. I mean, I don't know how much you work, but I mean, he works full-time.
I work very close to full-time.
Right. And so full-time mayor, and I mean, I don't know what the actual number is. I'm kidding with 10,000. I think it's close to that. But, it's just like our state legislators. I mean, they make like 14,000, whatever that is. You are working full-time.
Yeah. And because of that, we also see on the council the need to bring new people in.
Right.
And we're not supposed to talk about age, but younger people.
Right.
I mean, it really makes sense. I am the next to the youngest person on that council.
Who's younger than you?
James Taylor.
Okay. Yeah.
James Taylor is a Gen Y.
Okay.
And I am at the tail end of baby boomers.
Right. So
I kind of have, some characteristics of both. But I see us as a city, and I see us as a council perpetuating the baby boomer mentality, which is normal. And I'm not denigrating anyone for that, but we live in a baby boomer city, baby boomer world that was constructed by baby boomers for baby boomers, and it's difficult to make that shift. So we need to bring in younger people. Now, there's no way when I was in my 30s or 40s I would have considered doing this because I needed the money.
Right.
I was at the point in my life that I needed a decent salary. So if we're going to get new people, younger people on, they have to be able to afford to do this and still live. So we have taken the salary up, and we may do that even more. Mm-hmm. I have heard rumblings from some of my colleagues that they would like to take it up even more to make it a real full-time job.
Yeah, and the people that are and this is why I said, do you like it? I mean, I did town council in Louisville for 2 terms.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, and,
with Mike Horn?
Yeah, he was on council with me.
Okay,
he was not mayor yet. Yeah.
He's a good guy too.
Yeah, and so we, I don't know. I think like it's maybe $7,200 a year, something like that. I mean, no, I don't even think it was. I don't know what it was. It wasn't that much.
I can't tell you. It's
I didn't
public
do it for that.
information.
Yeah,
Anybody who wants to know, you can go to the City of
Right.
Winston-Salem website and dig up all this information. But it's not big bucks.
You're not doing it for that. You're doing it for your love of people and things like that. But it is. The problem is our personalities are similar when it comes to one thing. You and I both thrive off of good deeds and excitement and positive energy. Mm-hmm. The problem is the negative energy.
Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of it.
And sometimes, like, you send out something and someone replies back with a hateful message. I mean, that takes all of the energy out of it. What's the Einstein quote where he goes and he multiplies 9 times 1, 9 times 2, and he gets a 9 times 0 or something like that, and 9 times 9, and he writes 82, and everyone laughs because you got the wrong number there, and he goes, okay, so I did it right 10 times, but the one time I did it wrong, and that's all you all can focus on. And that's true with, personalities that are outgoing and theatrical, whatever. I mean, we do thrive on, we're good boys. But that one negative will do that. And that's the one thing I hate about the position is that you do have, but
Well, we're making changes.
you can address it though, and that's what's being cool now. As we've gotten older, it's easier to say, well, okay, I understand your side of things. We can disagree, but let's not be disagreeable.
Yeah, that's somebody else's quote. That's a good.
And I forget who said that, but I mean, it's a great quote.
Yeah.
Because you and I may agree politically, you and I may disagree politically. You can tell me I'm a dummy for voting for who I voted for or who I didn't vote for or whatever, but at the end of the day, you're still Kevin, I'm still John, and we're still friends. And I want to hear what your views are because that may actually help me understand something better.
Absolutely. I mean,
I don't like the fiery people.
If you talk to a political strategist or someone who really is working in the political world, they spend a lot more time learning what the other party thinks and does than they do the party that they're working for because they already know their own platform. So you're right. I mean, if all I do is surround myself with people who think the same way, what am I learning? So, but it is difficult to be civil sometimes. When someone's not civil to you, it's hard to take the high road, even though there's less traffic. And Michael says, and I guess he's true. I wanted to deny it, but I'm a people pleaser. I want you to be happy. I want everybody to be happy.
We have the same faults.
Generally I can do that by coming to consensus.
Right.
And I've mediated consensus before. And that always makes me feel good that I walk away from a meeting with two people who didn't agree, but we've come up with something.
We've come up with C, yeah.
But in many, many cases with the city, it's just there's no consensus.
Well, when we annexed Vienna and Pofftown and stuff, we have people screaming, "Y'all are crookeder than a bucket of fish hooks" and things like that. And it's like, well, I don't need that. I mean, you weren't in 20 hours of meetings trying to figure out what about this line, what about that line, what about this line, and of course, you're money hungry and all. No, it was what worked and it was what served them, and now of course they're all like, well, glad we're not paying that tax rate. So it worked for everybody.
Yeah.
All right, so you run for office. You say you're going to do this. Of course, I think all of us Facebooked you and said, "Good luck, go get him," and all that kind of stuff. Was one of the worst experiences and one of the best experiences of your life. The worst part of it is the pain in your legs on election day and your back and laying down for the next 2 days because you don't know what the heck happened to you. But I'm going to vote for you, young man. Was that not some of the best? Yeah.
Yeah. And, I learned some good marketing at Legs. And
so you wore some pantyhose to take care of that? Yeah.
No. Right. But my slogan was Vote Monday on Tuesday.
Right.
That I came up with on my own.
Right.
And I even got a call from my old VP of Marketing, John Sinaviva from Legs. He said, "Damn good marketing."
Yeah.
And I would be standing at the polls and people say, "Monday on Tuesday." So it really had an impact. And I'm not going to say that's the only thing that won me the election, but you have to stand out. You have to stand out. And you have to do something or say something that makes people remember you, because when they go to the polls, there's a long list of people they don't know.
Right. And the other thing is running unopposed always helps. But I think that you are also not only caring in your approach, you are not in your approach. And what I mean by that is we've talked about all different, race, religion, color, national origin, age, mental status, sex, gender, etc. If someone walks up to you, they don't immediately feel that, how do I act, how do I talk, how do I do this? Because as you were saying, to be in that class of people that is entitled, et cetera, and stuff like that, I try to understand. I'm not wearing someone else's shoes, but I try to understand what someone is coming to me, whoever they are, why they're mad, et cetera, and that. And I think one of the things that has come out lately, and what we're dealing with some way out there, is people don't want stuff put in their face. And so how do we make everyone get along without pointing out what the problems of the past or insecurities, et cetera, and all those things are? And because I think that's when people are constantly reminded of it, I think that's something that has turned off some people. And you don't do that.
Yes, you're right. And I mean, there are some people who are, they're angry. They're angry about their plight, and I understand that. You know, I've had a wonderful life. I have never, you know, had good parents, and I had a good education, and I am a privileged person, not a wealthy. I come from a wealthy family, but I came from white privilege. I never had to beg for anything. I never had to fight like some people have had to. So I can understand that hostility. I can understand the anger, and I call it righteous anger. But sometimes it can work against them because the very people that they need to help them, they can turn off with that anger. You know, I'm not saying they're wrong because
they're being
I
themselves.
can't
That's
feel
true.
their anger.
Right.
I didn't grow up that same way. But sometimes you temper that and you can get better results. So I'm not angry when I talk to anyone. I'm passionate. You know, I can get carried away sometimes when I'm on my soapbox, but it's not anger, and I try not to be too much in your face. Because if we don't agree on that, that's okay. But as long as you'll listen to me, as long as you will understand, or at least try to understand where I'm coming from, why I feel the way I do, why I'm going to vote the way I am, then I consider that a win, even if you don't agree with me after the conversation.
Well, no matter who someone is, I think we all wake up the same way every morning, and that is, I don't want to piss off my spouse or significant other. That's my goal every day.
I don't know. He might argue with that.
No, but that's my goal. That's your goal every day, isn't it? You know, you want to feed your family, and you know, you want to try and take care of people. And I mean, if I'm talking with someone that has those beliefs and they're working that way, I mean, you know, it's a lot easier to get past it. But I think that you are right that there is a you know, what is it? Craig Richardson, who's been a guest on our show, you know, has said that if you wake up poor in Forsyth County, you know, I mean, if you're born poor in Forsyth County, you may die.
You probably will.
Yeah,
The odds are
you're going to
against you.
die poor in Forsyth County. We've got to fix that. I don't know what that is, but that's something we've got to fix.
I agree 100%. And I keep asking because we put together programs right now, you know, I think it's still in place. We say education is the key. Well, there's a program that the city helps fund at Forsyth Tech. Anybody can get an education. But the people who most need the education, that most need to work their way out of poverty, they're not hearing about this program. Or if they do, they're not responding to it. I say we have to pluck people out of poverty. It's not going to happen organically, and it's not going. I don't care how many programs you offer them. If you build it, they will not come in Winston-Salem. You got to pluck them out.
Take a break, and I'm going to ask you one on that. We're going to be right back with more Camel City Chat and finish up talking more about what you've done in the last 2 years and what your vision is for our city. All right,
Great.
We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. I'm talking with Southwest Ward Kevin Mundy, and he's our council member for. Actually, are we in your district
Right now.
Okay,
You
just
certainly
making
are.
sure. All right. So, you know, you were saying something about pluck people out. You've got to get to the people, like, you know, Emily Norris. She's, you know, with the homeless church, and that we've got to, you know, everybody knew we were going to be working on the Beltway. Why? Because, you know, Pat sent people to every public event he could, and she was there handing out information and stuff like that. So how do we get people aware of these programs? It's got to be a grassroots effort, and you've got to go where people are going.
Yeah. I will tell you right off the bat, I don't know the answer to that. I know the problem. And I have some ideas, but we've got to come up with something. One of the ways, you know, especially during COVID, we had a lot of people who were going into, who were being kicked out of their apartment, who were going into, not foreclosure, but
Eviction.
Eviction, thank you. We know who those people are.
Right.
And it seems to be not a one-time thing, but a lot of people have been evicted more than once. That tells you that there's a pattern of poverty and problem. So how do you generate the list? Well, that's one way.
Section 8.
You go to those people and say, it's almost case management. How can I get you out of poverty?
Well, I mean, Section 8, you have to go in and apply for that. I mean, that could be it.
Yeah.
You know, there's just so many. There's got to be a concerted effort,
Yes.
and I don't think that's being done. I think there's, you know, you're over here, they're over here, someone else is over here. How do you get it? And
And I don't want to pass the buck necessarily, but most of these programs, like Section 8, they're federal programs, and the federal program, you've heard a bit of the benefits cliff. So if you are really poor, you can get everything paid for, but you start a job at minimum wage, you lose all your benefits, and you don't make enough money to fight your way out of a paper bag.
Have you seen, Morgan Spurlock with, Super Size Me? He did a series called 30 Days, and it's always been one that I will reference back in my mind thinking about things. He did one on minimum wage. He and his wife took credit cards, froze them. They lived in Cleveland. They made minimum wage, whatever. By the end of the month, he was down $200 because he fell at work and had to go get free health care, and had a hospital bill to pay. I mean, people month to month, week to week, month to month, whatever, check to check sucks. And so if everyone is so into we've got this issue, then there's got to be some money behind that.
We incentivize people to stay
Right.
in poverty, to continue living in poverty. Now, I mentioned Nancy Young earlier. She proposed this idea, so it's not my idea, but if the best job that somebody can get is working minimum wage, then we need to say, what is the living wage? They need to be making $45,000 a year. Well, they're working at a fast food place and they're making $25,000 a year. They've lost all their benefits because they're making money. We need to subsidize that. We need to get them up to a livable wage, and if you run the numbers, that's less expensive than keeping them on, the old term is the government dole.
Well, I'm friends with Paul Lowe, and Senator Lowe and I and several people. In fact, I've got talk and also and also Representative Zinger. So I'm the liaison to them from the realtors, and we all talk about what is affordable housing, and no one can define it. And Paul says, well, is it this this amount or this amount, and we've kind of gotten a definition now. I had someone on and they were talking about how you take 80% of the average wage. And then from there you come out and you take 40% of that, and that's the housing fee or whatever. And so you get that number. But there are groups that are meeting every week downtown at coffee shops talking about how do we fix this and how do we do this. And we got to do something. And how do we get the people together to do it? Do we get all the foundations together? How many people fall into that? They need $15,000 or $20,000 to supplement.
Yeah, and city government cannot do it alone.
Right.
Most certainly, unless everybody's willing to pay 3-4 times more taxes, because there's just not the money there that people think there might be. And most of our money comes from state sources or federal sources, as opposed to personal property taxes. But we need some public-private partnerships. We do need, the mayor has talked about starting, a housing fund that doesn't have to live by the same guidelines that federal programs do, which are very restrictive. And if you don't have an MBA or a PhD, sometimes you can't even fill out the paperwork. I get very perturbed at government programs that clearly don't take into account who they're trying to serve.
Well, you're not this age yet, nor am I. But my understanding is I got a friend of mine that's wife's been trying to get disability for 11 months. It's supposed to take 7. Hired an attorney. Find out, how the attorney gets paid? They get 25% of the first check. The longer it goes out, the more the check's going to be. What's the incentive there? You and I, Social Security. Do you take it at 62 and a half? Do you take it at 65? Take it at 70? All that. I got a friend, Rick Babuzak's a friend of mine, who helped out one of my clients and found out that he needed, if he filled out one check on this mark, he got $500 more a month. The person there wasn't going to tell him about that. You need a slide rule and an abacus to fill out most forms.
Sometimes our guidelines are just too strict.
Well, we got legal aid. Why can't we have form aid?
Yeah.
All right. So in 2 years, I know you've been in the news once or twice. But I don't know what for. So what have you done in 2 years? What are you most proud of?
Most proud definitely is passing the NDO, the non-discrimination ordinance.
And that was a little bit of a push for you.
It was a bit of a push.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, the good thing is I didn't face opposition.
Right.
I didn't have people on the council working against me. Dee Dee Adams was very actively working with me. Mayor Pro Tem.
Wasn't it more of a definition issue?
More of a definition
issue. People just want to cover every base.
And codifying things that other people say are already covered, by the Constitution or by this or by that, but not really. It's not codified. And we're still not there because the fact that the Supreme Court just said it wasn't the cake baking case, but it was somebody else that you can deny service to me because I'm gay.
Right.
No. What would happen to a hotel if a black person walked in and the hotel clerk said, "I'm sorry, we don't want to do business with you"? But they can do that to a gay person. They can do, but not in Winston-Salem.
Right, but that makes me sick.
Not with the NDA. Not with the NDO. We now have a path to take that person, not to criminal court, but to civil court, and say, no, you in this city, you have to do business with everybody. You cannot discriminate against them because they're gay, because they have a natural hairstyle, because they're pregnant. All these things that people assume are covered, we've got them codified and listed.
Well, a prime example where you fall on the issue is it's the Second Amendment. Some people say it wasn't written the way it's interpreted or whatever. It'd be very clear if it was written this way or that way. So with you guys came in and said, this is what we're going to do.
Everybody can have a musket.
Yeah, right. But in your case, everyone is taken care of.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
All right, before we go, we got like 2 or 3 minutes left. I want it's Wednesday, no, it's Thursday
Today's
now.
Thursday.
So we want the Mundy view of, since you vote for Mundy on Tuesday. Tell us, what are some dreams of you in this community? What are some dreams of yours? I told you I was going to ask you.
My dream is that we continue making that turn from, everybody knows that Winston-Salem was a tobacco and textile town. And everybody, but in the 1920s, we were the biggest city in North Carolina. We had the tallest building, east or rather south of Washington, D.C. So we've been in the news. We were a big deal when we had 5 Fortune 500 companies. We're not that city anymore. And I think we have made great progress in becoming that, center for innovation, particularly for medical innovation. But we have to keep that happening. We have to keep turning. We have to keep evolving. And we have so many people in Winston-Salem who love the past, who love the way things are now, and they just don't see the need for that change. And I just want people to start embracing positive change. And that's the biggest thing we have to do. I could list all sorts of things. Good Lord, I'd love to have all the potholes filled. I hate driving downtown because it tears up my car. We have so many infrastructure issues that everybody would be
Why do
happy.
we make half the road not one way? Never mind, I'm not going there.
Not my ward.
I'm not going there.
People would love to have their leaves picked up.
Right.
People would love to have their brush picked up. There are so many city services that we can and should improve upon. And hopefully once we have more people coming to work, and we have enough mechanics to fix the broken down equipment, we can meet those needs. But I'm talking about on a much higher level. We have to continue to evolve. We have to continue to change in order to grow, because if you're not growing, you're dying.
Well, we have to be the incubator, but then we also want to try and make it so the kids don't want to leave after they go away to school.
That's true.
And that's the thing. But we had the go-to Winston-Salem on. She was on here, and she's like, I love this place. So it is a wonderful place to live.
Yeah, and anybody who says there's nothing to do in Winston-Salem, oh, come on.
Put on some sneakers and start walking.
Google it. There's always something to do in Winston-Salem. And if you want to go hear live jazz on a Wednesday night, that might not be an option. But I will tell you, 2 or 3 nights a week, you can find live jazz somewhere in Winston-Salem or Louisville, the surrounding areas. There's plenty to do in Winston-Salem. Now some people, they just yearn for a bigger city. So they're going to move to Chicago. They're going to move to New York. But guess what? Guess where they're coming back to?
So I have a piece of paper over there that's on my desk. I'll show you afterwards. You can take it with you. It's all the one color states are where they're moving from, and we're in the yellow states where they're moving to.
Yeah.
So Idaho's the place most people are moving to. It's crazy. What the percent? We'll talk about it. All right.
I hope not Coeur d'Alene, but
here we go, folks. Kevin Mundy, Southwest Ward Council member for your Winston-Salem City Council. Appreciate the chat.
Thank you, John.
Want to thank Jeff Smith, who was a Leadership Academy of Winston-Salem graduate. Give me the handshake anyway there too. But I don't want to leave you hanging because we're friends. I'm getting a hug after this, by the way. But so great guy. Thanks for doing this, and we'll be back next week with more Camel City Chat.
Thank you, John. Thank you, folks.